How that? I know it's from a line from a movie. You've been led astray, hoodwinked, bamboozled. It's such a mood for this episode and for today. What's going on, family? It's your young auntie Koi here, and welcome back to another episode. Thank you for coming back to the house and pulling up on your auntie. You know your auntie love it when the nieces and nephews say what's up. So how are you doing? I am hoping all is well with you today and that you are well, period. That you're blessed, that you're in a good space, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. And if you are not, I pray God has his way and that it is all well already. So you guys, I'm hoping you guys are doing good. Like I said, I'm blessed. I won't complain. I could, but I won't. I'm so happy that y'all enjoyed the last episode after my uncalled for hiatus. Uncalled for, unplanned, all that good stuff, hiatus. And thank you for joining and being so understanding and supportive. Y'all really have no idea how much your support means to me, and how just as a little nobody with something to say, I appreciate you tuning into your auntie whenever she pull up. So today's episode is pretty much a mood. I am feeling led astray, hoodwinked, and bamboozled by society. I don't know if anybody else is feeling that. I don't know if you feeling like somebody played with you. I don't know if it got anything to do with June and this whole new retrograde. I'm not too sure how y'all operate with that. But there's been some things occurring, and I got a lot of questions because I know we all don't have, not as a collective. I don't remember us making it an appointment or putting it on Snap. It's not in my memories that we all, as a collective went and got tattooed and now Boo Boo the Fool is across our foreheads. I don't recall that day. If anybody else does, definitely let me know because I got a lawsuit to file because I don't remember giving consent because I'm definitely nobody's Boo Boo the Fool. So let's just get on right into the the auntie report that we have for today. First things first, I know y'all saw it. Ain't no way you did not see it. I don't know how many times the Shade Room and other pages posted it about the lady that came outside and was fighting the bear because the bear was trying to get her dogs. Now, I know that song is cute and all. If you ever see me fighting in the woods with a grizzly bear, help the bear, because that bitch gonna need it. Listen to me. Seeing it in person, help me. You ain't gotta help the bear. You can definitely help me. And as a pet owner, I got a cat and I live in the hood. So I feel like my chances of running into a bear or my cat interacting with a bear is very limited. But her interactions with possums or, raccoons, them shits, that's a lot more likely. And I don't know if anybody else is a pet owner or you want to be a pet owner, has had the opportunity to have a conversation with your pet child and explain to them, maybe it's just me, but I definitely told my cat, listen, if you go outside and all of a sudden you feel like you feral and this where you belong and you want to be out in nature and you don't want to come back in the house, or if I'm trying to protect you from something and you want to have a little attitude and you don't want to come inside, you now belong to the streets. You now belong outside. I'm not fighting no possum. I'm definitely not going up against a rabid, rabies-filled raccoon. I don't care how cute they look. I don't care that they wash their food before they eat it. I'm not about to go outside and fight a wild animal. And a bear over my dog. Listen, we would have had a real nice little ceremony in the backyard. Real close family and friends that knew the dog would have came by. Because that would have been it. And it would have been me at the door of my house. I would have saw the bear and saw all my dogs, barking and stuff, doing what they do. Because, dogs get in, that territorial mode and they just want to protect, their domain. I'm at the door. I promise this is my message to my animals. Y'all got 3 seconds to get in this house or everybody now belongs outside. And I have no pets anymore. And I promise I will be at the shelter to adopt 5 more, y'all. Because she had a lot of dogs. And if whoever don't decide to come in, if I say, let's go, whoever don't move, I'm closing the door. Because if that bear decides to pull a Hulk move and rip through all my dogs and then see me and try and come for me, oh, no. If you see me fighting a grizzly bear, Help me. It ain't the bear ain't gonna need it. The bear don't need help. What the bear need? Bear don't need no reinforcements. Don't need nobody to call. It's a bear. It's a bear. But that, I had to get that out the way because it was funny. It was comical. But at the same token, I noticed a lot of white folk, at least in the media, what the media shows, what my black media allows me to see is a lot of white people interact with wild animals a lot. And it could be in simplest things, people getting their boats flipped over by whales when they out snorkeling and stuff, or whales wanting to play with people as they on their kayaks, and, what's some things, the white whale, I think it's a beluga whale, whatever, rescuing people phones when they fall in the ocean and stuff. That is really nice. That is really, really nice. But when you got an apex predator in your backyard, I would love for you to call PETA and see what they do to help you out. But moving along of our first business of led astray, y'all, they hoodwinked us, and we not gonna play with people. I'm not playing with people trying to make me seem like I'm stupid or slow. You understand what I'm saying? So an article came out. I want to say this came out on the Atlanta Black Star page. I want to say that's where this article came from. But the title says, clips of Gabrielle Union recalling her experience on Friends resurfaces days after the show's creators say they didn't intend to have an all-white cast. Fans trash the show. Before we get into this, again, hoodwinked. The fact of the matter is, and I'm just going to put this out there, okay? Yes, Friends was always meant to be an all-white cast because y'all constructed Friends based on the all-black cast of Living Single, which was a popular show on the same network 3 years running before Friends even came into being. I love me some Jennifer Aniston, and I appreciate all the little comedies of Monica and Chandler. But at the end of the day, that show was a total, complete ripoff and respin and turnaround of Living Single. Y'all never intended to have diversity on that cast because it was never meant for that. Y'all wanted us to see a group of six people in a Friends, white people living their best life, working little piss poor jobs, not making a lot of money, all this drama and everything. And for the first 3 years of Living Single, that's what we got to see, of an all black cast. So this whole article talking about the show's creators didn't intend to have an all white cast, you can kiss my ass, because there's no way a show runs for over 6 years. And you gonna sit here and tell me that show did not intend to at no point just be an all-white cast. You're not gonna hoodwink me, but let's read the article, shall we? So the article says, fans of the popular sitcom Friends were treated last month to a reunion special years in the making. And like with most gatherings, a trip down memory lane sure took place. The show's co-creators, Marta Kaufman, opened up about several things, including the lack of diversity on the show's 6-person lead cast, all of whom are white, and other creative regrets. The reunion, however, also made way for an old clip of Gabrielle Union to resurface to the internet. In it, the Bring It On star detailed some of her not-so-pleasant experiences as a black actress in Hollywood, working in a white-dominated space, using her time as a guest star on Friends during season 7 as an example. The clip came from a larger interview that she did with Free Library of Philadelphia while on a press run for her 2017 book, We're Going to Need More Wine, Stories That Are Funny, Complicated, and True. I love that book. If y'all have not read that book or actually listened to it, I loved it listening to her talk it on, I think I listened to it on Audible. I will always support Auntie Gabby. In her book, and she detailed how some Hollywood bigwigs would talk to her as if she were a rookie and not as someone who was already established a solid place in the industry. She continued to say that the man talked to her in a sing-song voice the whole week, but she's been there. Do buckwheat. We love it when you entertain us. That's where we're most comfortable. Assimilate, disappear, be complacent. Were you nice and safe? The clip cuts off just as the Bad Boys 2 actress was about to begin another thought. However, it was enough to get a conversation online started. Many were shocked, don't know why, to hear that Union experience given her place in Hollywood. but not all shared the same feelings. One Twitter user wrote, "They disrespected Gabrielle Union. Yet another reason why Friends is bad. And if you like Friends, please understand I respect you less." Another commenter on Twitter said Gabrielle Union's experience on Friends was horrible and a racist and insulting one, and people are still watching it and defending that show. Union's video caused viewers to share some aspects of this show that didn't sit well with them either. Like one person who commented, "I liked Friends, but I did notice subliminal messages that seemed racist." They added Gabrielle Union was on one episode of Friends. Her character was pursued by Ross and Joey. At one point, all three were at a restaurant. The guys were arguing over her. Then the men argued about a monkey. I remember that episode. That actually did happen in the episode. They went from arguing over her to arguing about a monkey. But y'all love this show. Y'all love to see y'all little white friends together. The article continues to talk about where now the co-creator Kaufman, she told The Hollywood Reporter that they didn't purposely make the cast all white and heteronormative. And looking back, there are probably 100 things I would have done differently, he added. I've talked about it in the past, and I do have very strong feelings about my participation in a system, but it comes down to I didn't know what I didn't know. You know, not for nothing, but just to kind of tag on to that before I actually give my full opinion of this. Friends, there was another article I pulled, I want to say from like this Hollywood website. I don't remember the actual name. But the article said, you know, Friends cast reportedly made over $2 million each for starring in the reunion special. I'm not going to read the article about their initial offer of $1 million or how, you know, everything came to be. But the fact that they each made, that 6 people at $2 million a pop, that means that on a reunion special, that was probably like an hour and some change, they made $12 million amongst all of them. I will do my best to be as sensitive as I can to how hard it is to break out in an industry with respect of everyone's experience on both sides of the color spectrum. But my problem will always remain and has always been that I have a serious issue with the fact that African Americans can make productions and we can make shows and we've done everything first. There's so many things we've done first. We created, we engineered, we invented, we pushed through the culture that white people colonized, dominated, scarfed down like it was Last Supper, and regurgitated it as an acceptable way for larger America to take in color culture. Same thing happened with rap and hip hop. The moment little white boys in suburbia got wind of it, got excited about it, they started dressing like it. They started dressing like us, talking like us, all this other good stuff. We were now, the African American influence was the worst influence that could possibly ever touch white households. And then Eminem came out. And then you had an influx of all these white boys want to come out and be rappers. That now we have, you know, the Macklemores and the rest in peace Mac Millers and the what's his name, Machine Gun Kelly, that come out and they do it in their own way, and they showing up and they representing, you know, the European white boys that got a little bit of lyricism. But the reality is they're not the originators of it. And my problem is when no one gives homage, when you don't pay respect to where you come from and you don't actually give proper dues, kudos to where you come from, it's a problem. So this co-writer, whatever he is, co-creator of Friends, sitting here talking about you never intended for the show to be an all-white cast. Let me tell you something, okay? The reality of the situation is if you never intended for it to be an all-white cast or for it to have a heteronormative, you know, storyline, from the creation of it, you would have constructed that into the show. Okay? If that wasn't your intention. From the creation of it, you would have did that. After the first season and y'all got solidified and y'all had y'all placements for the next however seasons, because Y'all took Living Single off the air. Let's be very clear about this. I think it was Queen Latifah and I think it was the gentleman that played Overton. When they did interviews talking about what happened to Living Single, they talked about it. About the fact that the network chose the all-white cast doing the same exact thing over them. Gave them their time slot, pushed them back. Y'all have no right to sit here and collect $2 million a pop. I want to see the Living Single cast do a reunion special. Netflix, y'all got this big shit going on about all these black films, and y'all want to announce all these black things that y'all doing every month and all this stuff. Y'all just brought Love Jones onto Netflix. Y'all need to get a Living Single reunion special popping. Everybody love this nostalgia play and you want to revisit and bring up old shit, then y'all need to do it the proper way. How the fuck do you give the duplicate, the regurgitation, the non-original? How the hell do you give that a reunion special? No. Hoodwinked and bamboozled if you think I'm going to believe any of that foolishness. Moving on to our next order of business in our auntie report. Miss Naomi Osaka. I don't know who doesn't know about this, especially since the Mother Venus has spoken out. But recently, there's an article that came out. I want to say this was through CBS. Y'all know I love me a good source. But an article came out saying how Naomi Osaka says she won't talk to the media at French Open, citing mental health. So I know that Dr. Umar Johnson had a couple of opinions. Excuse me. He had a couple of opinions about his feelings, and he went on the Breakfast Club. And my feelings about Dr. Umar Johnson, I will reserve for myself for another conversation for now. But he made comments about feeling away, about who she was going to represent as technically a woman of color and has, being of African descent. I believe her father is like Haitian or something. But of being of African descent and, getting all these accolades when she first came out about being black, or she identifies as a black woman or whatever. But in the French Open, she was going to represent Japan and not Haiti. And, I personally don't give Dr. Umar Johnson a lot of energy and a lot of things that he says anymore, especially over the last couple of years. But regarding Naomi Osaka, it was a situation where I just felt like he was grasping for straws. But this is a young lady that gained stardom by beating one of the legends, Serena Williams. The legend, Serena Williams, in an Open, I believe it was, that had never happened. And she got put on everybody's radar at that point. So the article basically is saying how one of the world's biggest tennis stars, Japan's Naomi Osaka, said Wednesday she will not speak with the media during this year's French Open because of the toll news conference's take on the player's emotional well-being. She's quoted by saying, "I've often felt that people have no regard for athletes' mental health, and this rings true whenever I see a press conference or partake in one." They say Osaka, ranked number 2 in the world, wrote in a post shared on her Instagram and Twitter accounts when announcing her decision. The tennis star said she had watched many clips of players breaking down in the press room after losing matches, and then subjecting athletes to questions from journalists in those situations amounts to kicking a person while they're down. So essentially, Naomi decided to not participate in the French Open because she did not want to, for mental health reasons. Like, shorty got anxiety and stress, and it's bad enough how stressful the Open is, the pressure they're under. Like, this is a career breaking tournament. You understand what I'm saying? Career making or breaking tournament. So that kind of pressure, plus how you have to perform, and then you got people, commentators, critics, experts, whoever, asking all these kinds of questions. And my thing is, I've listened to some of these questions that reporters ask, and they're not always relevant to the event. They talking about, personal life and everything else. But if this is a young lady that, just like with Summer Walker, no one wanted to believe that this young lady could actually have social anxiety, that as an entertainer, as a performer, she would have anxiety about being on stage and dancing and performing her music. And so much judgment from the press and from the media, and from us as a society, as fans, was absolutely disgusting. That this woman, I'm not even going to stretch it. That's probably why before COVID, she stopped performing, because I'm telling you, people are absolutely vicious. But the article says the decision has a real world impact because players can be fined up to $20,000 for skipping post-match briefings at Grand Slams unless they are injured and physically unable to appear. But it's not uncommon for players to take the hit and skip them anyway after particularly hard losses. Y'all got to understand, don't nobody want to talk about how they lost, why they lost, how they feel about losing. You don't know how hard these people train day in, day out, the conditioning from young to be able to do what they, even be able to get to the tournament, to even make it. And I don't watch tennis, but I know watching people play it, that's not no sport anybody could just pick up a racket and just start swinging. You know what I mean? Like, without grace and like God-given talent and ability. Like, I don't see that as a thing happening. So I don't blame any of them for not wanting to go. And I don't understand why there's a $20,000 fine, up to a $20,000 fine, because I don't want to talk to the fucking press. You like, what do you mean? Part of my job is to show up and perform. That's my major job. Show up and do what I do best. I ain't got to talk to y'all people if I don't want to talk to y'all. If I show up and I sit there and I don't answer any of y'all questions, or I say next question, next question, next question, y'all are going to be upset because I'm like, well, why did she even come if she's not going to answer those questions? So I tell you what, I'm going to take a mental break for us both, and I'm not going to show up. And I mean, if you're making millions of dollars, like once they win the tournament, they get like a check for like a couple $1 million. Take the hit. Why not? Even with losing matches, you still get money. Take the hit, pay the money, go on a vacation. Like, at this point, fuck it. But Osaka's statement had generated more than 7,000 comments on Instagram, including her fellow tennis players. American Venus Williams, a 7-time Grand Slam champion, said, girl, something my stupid paper cut off. But they were encouraging her. A lot of people, a lot of stars and celebrities were encouraging her, to just ignore what was going on and do what she needed to do for her. And the article says, soft-spoken Osaka has so far had a largely amicable relationship with the media. In her post, she said her decision was nothing personal against the tournament, adding that she has had a friendly relationship with most of the journalists who cover the sport. But she added, if the organization thinks that they can just keep saying, do the press or you're going to be fined, and continue to ignore the mental health of the athletes that are the centerpiece of their corporation, then I just got to laugh. And laugh hard, so you shall. I just want to say this, why, when you reach a certain point of wealth, people saying what they're going to do to you, you be like, all right. Like, if they're going to charge you stuff, you be like, all right. Because it says, the Japanese Haitian player who has taken the tennis world by storm since her breakout in 2018 has already won 4 Grand Slam titles at the age of 23. Earlier this month, she was named Sportswoman of the Year by the prestigious Laureus World Sports Awards. She earned more than $55 million last year. She is Naomi gotta be, she's younger than me. I'm 26. I know for a fact Naomi like 25, 24. Like, shorty is not old. She earned more than $55 million last year. A record for a female athlete, according to the sports business website Sportico. She also used her voice to become a champion for racial equality on and off the court. This is true. At last year's U.S. Open, she wore 7 masks, each carrying the name of the victim of racial violence. French Open qualifiers are underway with the main draw set to begin on Sunday. And I honestly just want to encourage Miss Naomi, you feel what I'm saying? Because there was another article that came out explaining why she decided to withdraw from the French Open, citing anxiety over media interviews. And essentially, that's really what it is. She decided to prioritize her mental health. And she said, in a statement that she had put out a while ago, I want to say about a week ago, she said that she suffers from long bouts of depression since being catapulted into the national spotlight after a controversial victory over Serena Williams in the U.S. Open in 2018. She says she would never trivialize mental health or use the term lightly. The truth is that she suffered from, like she said, long bouts of depression since the U.S. Open in 2018, and she's had a really hard time coping with that. She's honest and transparent in an article saying, anyone that knows me knows I'm introverted, and anyone that has seen me at tournaments will notice that I'm often wearing headphones, as that helps dull my social anxiety. I think it's very important to notice that in a performance sport where people are watching you and judging you and you have to perform a certain way, automatically there might come a social anxiety. If you're not if you don't do crowds, no matter what your profession is, if you as a person just don't do people, or you don't do crowds, or you don't do lots of people at one time, anything you have to do is going to be stressful. And if you have to take a mental break for yourself, then you have to take a mental break. And at $55 million in a year, sis ain't never got to work ever again. She don't got to play a game ever again. Financially, she doesn't have to play ever again. So yeah, find me the $15,000. I'm going on vacation for 3 months. I worked hard to get here. My family's good. My reputation's solid. I beat the best player in the world in 2018 at 23. Naomi, mama, you can chill out. And in the words of Mother Venus, when she was asked her opinion recently about this, she said, and I quote, and I wrote it down, for her, how she copes, she said, I know every single person that asks me a question can't play as well as I can and never will. So no matter what you say or what you write, you'll never light a candle to me. So that's how I deal with it, but each person deals with it differently. Essentially, Mama Venus said, sticks and stones may break my bones, but bitch, I'm still paid. So you can keep your little funky opinion to yourself. You understand? You can keep it right on to yourself. But moving right along in our Auntie Report today, because we talked about being hoodwinked, let's talk about being bamboozled. Because there's a bigger topic I want to get to, and we're going to get to, and I'm not going to hold y'all much longer. So let's just speed on through this article, which is tying into everything that I'm about to talk to y'all about. So if you do not know, May 31st of 2021 was the 100-year anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre, which is the bombing or total destruction of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which existed in 1901. And it was a thriving section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, with over 30 businesses, including barbershops, doctor's offices, lawyers, grocery stores, general stores, all kind of stuff was destroyed in a night of attack from white supremacist mobsters. The talk lately has been reparations. I promise y'all, this is all I'm gonna make it all the way around. The conversation has been about reparations and what Biden is wanting to do. And in regard to, quote unquote, helping the African American community. And this is where the bamboozling, I want y'all to start to feel the bamboozle, because I feel bamboozled. But I want y'all to start to feel it in your spirit, just start to get that together. So let's just read this article. that talks about how black gun owners marched on Tulsa's Black Wall Street. So in this article, hold on. I'm telling y'all, I really cannot wait to get my own little space so I could soundproof it, because these honking horns and sirens is ghetto. But we here. But anyway, this article I'm reading, I will get the source for you. But either way, Vice. This article came out on Vice. It says hundreds of black gun owners marched on Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma this weekend, chanting Black Power and carrying signs demanding reparations for the massacre that occurred in the city 100 years ago. In 1921, white mobs killed as many as 300 black Americans in the Greenwood neighborhood of Tulsa and leveled. Do y'all know what leveled means? Bringing to ground level the affluent 35-block center for black commerce and entrepreneurship. More than 1,000 homes and businesses built from the ground up by the city's segregated population were looted and burned down. Before I continue, I want to encourage everyone to do your own research about black wealth in this country, because Tulsa was the grandest scale, if we're going to go that way, of examples of Black Wall Streets in this country, of communities and local, not local, but like secluded, exclusive neighborhoods of black wealth and entrepreneurship. It was one of many locations, one of many areas and communities. Sorry, y'all, I'm hearing a phone ring and I don't know where it's ringing from, but I think it might be somebody's like Bluetooth car phone. Anyway, so the article goes on to say, to commemorate the lives lost and to continue the fight for racial equality, 15 pro-black guns organizations descended on the town and encouraged their communities to take advantage of the right to bear arms for self-defense. The march, considered one of the largest recent gatherings of black gun rights activists, included the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Pistol and Rifle Gun Club of Central Texas, the Anubis Arms Gun Club, and the Panther Special Operations Command. I am not somebody that is an advocate for guns. I definitely appreciate the protection value of guns. And as an American citizen, I support all Americans responsibly advocating and showing their right to bear arms, especially in states where it's legal, especially if you don't have a felony or any issues with your background, and especially if you feel like you need to be able to defend your home and your person and your family. And I'm not saying going out there and terrorizing people with AK-47s on the street. I'm saying you got something in your house, you keep your bullets in one part, your gun in another part, your kids don't know where stuff is, they don't have access to stuff. You know what I mean? Responsibly. I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it. And all these different black gun right organizations, I had no idea they even existed. So that's news to me. Participants trekked for more than 2 hours from MLK Jr. Boulevard and Pine Street in Tulsa through Greenwood, chanting Black Power and Power to the People. 20 years ago, an Oklahoma State Commission estimated the cost of $30 million but no meaningful legislation has passed in the state and Congress, because the conversation also talked about reparations because of the massacre. So you got to think about it in the terms of economy, in the terms of wealth, in the terms of what wealth was actually destroyed for families, for black families of Tulsa, and what that did generationally. This is over 100 years ago. So if we were to take it in terms of, think back to just 50 years ago of the franchises starting to build of like McDonald's and Burger King and stuff like that. And imagine that this stuff exists, and then one day at its baby stages, somebody comes in because they don't want you to have wealth. They don't want your community of people to have anything good. They feel threatened, so they come in and destroy your baby McDonald's or your baby Burger King. And in 100 years, no justice has ever been seen for that. But no one else in your family maybe would have thought to reopen it. Might have been even killed off. Because this is up to 300 people were killed. Families were slaughtered. You understand? Legacies ended for some families in Tulsa that day in May of 1921. So there's so much reparations financially is literally the surface level. And I'm saying that because an article also came out. I promise y'all, I'm going to bring this relevant. An article also came out talking about how California is moving forward with reparation plans for African Americans. And this is where I do not want us to be hoodwinked and bamboozled. But the article I was talking about previously was continuing, and I'll finish it off with this, saying that some of the gun rights advocates later joined the Tulsa Race Massacre Legacy Fest, another peaceful march organized in honor of the massacre's centennial. 3 survivors of the massacre led the march in a horse-drawn carriage. Miss Leslie Benningfield Randall, Ellis Van Hughes, and Viola Ford Fletcher. Miss Fletcher is the oldest living survivor at 107 years old. Advocated for the national recognition of the Tulsa riots with a written testimony to the U.S. House of Representatives on May 19th. A quote from, I want to say, a spokesperson said, "We must honor those that are still living from the bombing, which includes Mother Fletcher. Fletcher has demanded reparations for the community. She and others have demanded acknowledgement," this is very important, "from the U.S. government as related to the massacre. We have to continue to fight on behalf of those that have not received justice until the Day of Atonement comes." Now, back to what I was saying about the article from California about plans moving forward with reparations. This article came out June 2nd. So whenever y'all hear this, date it back, it probably won't be that long. But the article says California moves forward with reparation plans for African Americans on Tuesday during the first meeting of the state's task force to study proposals. I think language is extremely important. And this is where I'm like, I don't want us to get hoodwinked and bamboozled, because we as Black people, I'm speaking to my people, we are not gullible. But to a point or to an extent, it's almost like we are gullible because we're so trusting and we really want justice. We feel like as a collective, we're the only ones in this country that can't be treated like a human being, that can't get anything due us that we deserve. We're like the only group, it seems like. We're at the bottom of the totem pole. And when certain people in power, and this is also to Biden and Harris, when they play on our emotions and they play on our hearts and our cries for justice, we get starry-eyed. We get blinded. You know what I mean? We're not listening to what they're saying. We're just hearing what they're saying. And the language of this article is so important because it says during the first meeting of the state's task force to study proposals for reparations for African Americans, California Governor Gavin Newsom said that his state is moving forward with efforts to create a more equitable and inclusive future for all. As The Hill reported, just last year, the Democratic governor signed a bill approving the task force that will consider paying reparations for slavery. Consider it. Not this is what's happening. You're studying proposals about reparations. You're considering actually giving out reparations. But let's keep going because the statute requires a task force to make recommendations. Let me take a sip. Hold on. Because I'm over it. The statute requires a task force to make recommendations for lawmakers to address the findings by July 2023. We're in June 2021. So we still got 2 years and a month before they even can present anything to actually start okay. It is expected to include details on what form of compensation lawmakers should authorize, as well as who should receive those funds. Newsom explained, with this bill, we're bringing together some of the best, the brightest minds to chart a path forward to move to a more equal California. While speaking on the move, California Attorney General Rob Botna, who also spoke at Tuesday's meeting, said, although the horrors of slavery may have begun in the past, its harms are felt every day by Black Americans in the present. He added, yes, there has been progress in this country, but it has been all too uneven and it has not moved fast enough. We must move quickly. How much longer can we wait for justice? How much longer until we are able to truly fulfill the promise of the American dream that all are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights? Mr. Bonta, with all love and respect, beloved, you know the American dream was never meant to include the captured African, right? So this whole situation of when will, how much longer, dismantle the fucking system. It won't take that long if you do that. Y'all trying to just rewrite and white out and write over and type over. Y'all trying to just fix up what's already fucked up. There's no, what do you mean how much longer? What do you mean how much longer? Huh? How much longer? What do you mean you need a team of people? What do you mean you need a team of people to propose, to consider, to bring study? The conversation about African American reparations, about giving those reparations to actual descendant of Africans that were enslaved. Like, there's so many organizations in this country. There's so much research of this country. There should be no reason why it will take 2 fucking years for y'all to have information to decide whether or not to move on reparations, when y'all can put all this shit together to approve $1 trillion bills to just keep giving people money and just keep suckering them in. And this is where I'm at my point, my crux of the conversation. Led astray, hoodwinked, and bamboozled. And this is directly to our current sitting president, our current sitting vice president, Madam Vice President, our old president, and everybody else. Because I am at a point now where I don't know if everybody's smoking a strain of weed I just have never come across. Because, first of all, Biden, you sat there and campaigned. You campaigned entirely. Let's be clear. The real reason probably why Biden was only really made like president and why he only had the backings of the African American community, because of 2 primary fucking things. Because when Joe Biden was the vice president to Barack Obama, we thought, at least in some of my circles, he was the cool Uncle Joe that hung out with Obama. Don't know what the fuck the man did. Don't know where he went. Don't know who he talked to. All I know is every time I saw him, I saw Obama. I never saw Biden by himself. I can't remember shit that he said if it wasn't co-signing Obama or wasn't laughing and joking with Obama. So I don't know Biden from a fucking can of paint. You understand what I'm saying? Outside of the fact that he used to be Obama's VP. And I'm almost positive a lot of African Americans that were not that invested in Joe's influence and what he was supposed to do. I don't get it. Like, Joe Biden literally said and went on the Breakfast Club, if black people didn't vote for him, we weren't black. And all this talk about wanting to level out things and make all this shit racial equality and everything else. And I'm not comparing apples to oranges, but at this point, we are all fruit in the grocery store, and we all deserve to be tended to and taken care of to make sure nobody's rotten anywhere. I don't think that it's a coincidence, or I don't find it strange or funny that there's an incident where 6 Asian American lives are lost and taken by one white man, and about, 2 weeks later, there's an anti-hate bill, right? That's federal. That's on the fucking books. But when those 9 black people were killed in a church by one white boy who was invited to pray and even partake in the services that night is then picked up by police officers and taken to fucking McDonald's or Burger King, whatever the fuck. We can't get an anti-hate bill? Everybody want to get so hung up on Black Lives Matter. What the fuck is the difference between Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate? If I were to say Stop Black Hate or Asian Lives Matter, like, are y'all fucking serious? Biden, are you dead ass? You pandered to us. You pandered to us. And the bullshit, you pandered even bigger. And this is where I'm coming right now. You pandered even bigger to the broke black millennial who was convinced and bamboozled and hoodwinked like generations of us before to go to college and to take out all these fucking loans and to take out all this fucking money to go to school. And you sitting here you put on your fucking campaign, sir, that you were going to get rid of student loan debt, forgiveness, and all this other good shit if we made you president. Now you want to talk about taking that out? And don't get me wrong, the bullshit that he's trying to make it seem like, sidestepping, I found in an article. So let's get political, okay? President Joe Biden will announce new measures on Tuesday. This was this past Tuesday, which was June 1st, that his administration will take to help narrow the racial wealth gap in America. Biden will announce the rollback of 2 Trump-era housing rules, an increase in the share of federal contracts for small disadvantaged businesses, and an initiative to address inequity in home appraisals. The announcement will coincide with Biden's trip to Tulsa, Oklahoma. We just talked about this, to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, one of the worst episodes of racial violence in U.S. history. The article, gives the background history I already did about what happened, where countless black people were killed. Estimates range from 55 to more than 300 black people, and 1,000 homes and businesses were looted and set on fire. We covered this. But the bigger portion of what I want to get to and where I feel hoodwinked and bamboozled really is at the fact that the article even points out how Biden campaigned for president on a pledge to address systemic racism and opportunity gaps in aspects of American life. The pacification process of African Americans in this country is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, beautifully phenomenal. And again, this is where we're not paying attention really to language. But this is what Biden will announce: the creation of an interagency initiative to address inequity in home appraisal. Basically, what that means is HUD, led by the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge, homes and majority Black neighborhoods are often valued at tens of thousands of dollars less than comparable homes in similar majority white communities. This effort will seek to utilize very quickly the many levers at the federal government's disposal to root out discrimination in the appraisal and home buying process. Are we going to address redlining? Are we going to address redlining? You sitting here worried about appraisals and bullshit. Are we going to address redlining? Are we going to address redlining that happens in the mortgage office? Are we going to focus on fixing credit for first-time home buyers? How about we do that? Okay? I'm so sick of this. I am so sick of the bullshit, because the reality is the biggest creator, and I'm just going to skip through this bullshit article. I got so many things. But the reality of the situation, the biggest creator of the wealth gap today that still remains is debt. Black people as a collective are in debt 3 times as much, 3 times as higher than white people, white counterparts. And on top of that, our median income is not enough to supplement what we're paying or what we should be paying to relieve our debt. You worried about homes and appraisals and giving people more fucking money for PPP loan fraud. You want to keep giving people money to open up businesses. You want to give people more allowance to get more loans, to get more debt. But you don't want to offer forgiveness. You don't want to offer any help. I'm confused, sir. You've bamboozled us. You've played us. And all these little ass initiatives and tax credits. Like, for example, there's a tax credit they want to put out, which is called a new neighborhood homes tax credit, which would offer a tax credit to investors who renovate homes in low income and blighted areas where properties often cost more to redevelop than they can sell for. Who the fuck is he talking to? Who? They're offering initiatives for white people to come into the hood, to renovate the hood, to build up the hood, to continue to gentrify the hood. Get the fuck out of here. If y'all are not going to address redlining, if y'all are not going to address mortgage practices, and if you damn sure not going to do nothing to help first-time homeowners of low income raise their credit or alleviate their credit so we can go out here and get this stuff without all these consequences and high-ass APRs and interests and all this other good stuff, we're not doing this no more. I can't do it. I cannot do it. And leading into what I really wanted to talk about today is this whole debate about critical race theory. And this might be another conversation because I really don't want to hold y'all long. But this is something I want to give as a thought provocation, okay? Critical race theory and the debate about critical race theory. And I promise I will touch on this in another episode because it's something that I feel like we need to actually have a real conversation. We cannot keep talking about giving reparations and everything. And you got children, white children, black children, Mexican children sitting in a classroom and they have no idea what the real history of this country is. It's not fair that for years, myself at 26 years old, my education started and my identity of this country where I fall started at slavery, and a little white boy in class next to me started as a conqueror. That's not fair. And this whole bullshit about, not wanting to put the guilt on white kids about feeling bad. Listen to me. And it was a great conversation that happened on The Grapevine. If you don't know about The Grapevine, they're an amazing channel on YouTube. Oh my God, I love Ashley Akune. I want to talk to her. I want to be on The Grapevine so bad. But like legit, they did an episode about this, I want to say maybe a week ago. And one of the commentators, one of the contributors, her name is Nicole, white lady from Germany. And she has mixed children. And I was like, nothing but snaps because sis was making points. It's not about not wanting to put shame and guilt on little white kids. For generations, y'all that have gotten to go through life not knowing the real history of how the fuck even y'all came to be anywhere in the world, walking around with this spaced out idea and this warped reality of what actually happened and how we actually got here and what actually, y'all got the game twisted. Y'all aren't teaching kids. Y'all teaching kids that Christopher Columbus, who was dumb, and this was, quick little history lesson. Christopher Columbus was stupid and had to go on like 3-4 missions. This was like his 4th trip when he hit the Americas, and he didn't fucking hit the Americas. He hit the islands, and then they shipped his ass. They kicked him off the islands because they damn near killed all of his crew. They kicked him off. He went back to England to get more money and more crew. And when he came back, that's how he ended up in America. He didn't come here first. 1. 2, we learned that slavery, Africans traded Africans, and this was just a slave trade, and they were slaves. That's how we got here as slaves. No. We were captured, free people. We were doctors, we were lawyers. Everybody wasn't a fucking king. Everybody wasn't a fucking queen. But we had status, we had wealth, we had our freedom. We were treated like human beings in Africa. We were free people. And even those of us that were slaves or were traded in the slave trade or were captured as prisoners of war or whatever the case may be and then traded, were still treated with respect and dignity. You understand? that when we got on them boats and that Atlantic slave trade shit started happening and more than 4 million Africans were lost in the Atlantic Ocean, do you really fucking think they're teaching that in school? They were thrown overboard. Do you think they're teaching kids that in school? No, because I didn't learn it until after I got out of high school and got to college and took a critical race theory and took a critical race theory class and took African American studies classes and took Africana world diaspora classes. I had to invest in my own history and my own background because I learned for over 10 years in the public American school system that I was a slave. All I would ever be was a slave or a mammy or somebody's trope or somebody's trollop, and I would never be appreciated, and I didn't know where I came from. And don't get me wrong, yes, it's nice and it's dandelions and roses for everybody to think they came from kings and queens. Beautiful, excellent, awesome. But the reality is that's not everybody's story ancestrally. But we were free people. We did not come over here. We were proud people, people of culture, people of language, people of substance, and they stripped us of everything. Do you think they're really fucking teaching that to kids in school? But you want to sit here and tell me that it's not fair to put this kind of guilt and shame on a white child? What do you think my black child goes through in school? Black children get an education in critical race theory when they get home, when they're on the street, when they're at the store. We don't get to escape critical race theory. It keeps us alive. And reality check, critical race theory essentially gives all the facts. It lays it out. It's not pretty. It's not sugar-coated. It's not fairy dusted. It lays out all the facts. The good and the ugly, talks about the white binary, the white-black binary, talks about intersectionality. These are principles that were even talked about with W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass. Y'all, critical race theory is the missing link in American education. It's the only piece we can do. And if you don't want to offer it as a theory, then offer it as a studies. If you don't want to give it to kids under the age of in the 6th grade, then offer it the moment they get to 7th grade, the moment they get to 8th grade. When are we going to change? You talk about justice, Mr. Bonta, when are we really going to change the structure of the country? I am so sick of continuously hearing or telling even kids, you know, you're the future. You're the future. You're the future. You're the future. But we're not teaching them the real past. We're not really teaching them the real past so that they can construct a proper future. And my question is, I wonder, what difference? What would be the difference? Really, if the men in Congress, if the white men and the white women in Congress in certain parts of the South that made it to high levels of lawmaking, what if they took a critical race theory course when they were like 10, 7? What if they were stuck in a class taught by Jane Elliott? We love Mother Jane. Her blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment, best baby version of critical race theory. That worked, that has testimony of people that are telling her 20, 30, 40 years after she did this experiment in their class, what that perspective did, how it changed them, what that looks like. That's the beginning conversation. Blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment for children. Get them to understand that, yes, there is a such thing as race. Absolutely, there is such thing as supremacy, as white supremacy, as hate. Yes, racism exists. And before I let y'all go, Miss Harris, Madam Vice President Harris, you know, when I first advocated for you and I was in support of you, I ignored your track record that you had in California. You put a lot of black men away. You definitely did, sis. By yourself, legislation signed by your hand. And I don't know why I hoped and prayed for some reason that you would get in office as the first black person, black woman of color to hold title as vice president of the United States of America, as a member of one of the oldest African American sororities in this country. I would have thought, and I had the highest of hopes, that you would actually put us in some way, shape, or form as priority. I don't know why I thought that. But for you to open your mouth and say America is not a racist country, ma'am, I want to know who your plug is, and I want to know how much is an eighth. Because I need to smoke what you smoking. I need to. There's that. Maybe there's a special strain of weed she's smoking that we need to get up on. Because how the fuck do you say in your own speech, in your own words, bro, in your own words, how do you bring yourself to say America is not a racist country with full-blown fucking knowledge that you have admitted and owned up and take pride in being a black woman or a woman of African descent, and you have already acknowledged and taken pride in the fact that you are the first vice president, woman, vice president, black vice president? How the hell, ma'am, do you bring yourself and your lips to form such a sentence? How do you do that? I feel led astray, hoodwinked, and bamboozled. But what do y'all think? Honestly, I don't really talk about, and this is like my lane, black thought, black women, things that affect the black culture. This is my lane. I love to talk about this stuff. It gets me riled up. It lights a fire under me. But I know, and I apologize to anybody that might have taken offense to my profanity. But y'all know, black people, we have a very colorful language. And it just helps in expression, Sometimes saying, gosh darn it, just don't work. Like, damn it, or shoot don't have the same emphasis as shit. So, yeah, that's where we are. I love y'all. Y'all gonna love me. I'm in process. The Lord is not done with me yet. But I don't want to hold y'all up no more than I already have. Thank you so much for coming by the house and pulling up on your auntie. Like I was asking you earlier, what are your thoughts? What do you think about this episode? What do you think about the topics that we talked about today? How do you feel about the whole situation about Gabrielle Union and her experience on Friends? Were you surprised? Were you shocked? Would you like to see a Living Single reboot, a reunion? You know what I mean? Why not? They redoing all these other nostalgic black shits. Why not this one? Also, what are your thoughts more seriously on Naomi Osaka and her taking a step back from the French Open for her mental break? But really key important conversation, of course, today is, what are your thoughts on teaching children critical race theory in school? Do you feel like it's too early? Do you feel like there's a debate? And I get the concern about who's going to teach it and the bias and all this other good stuff, but there's been implicit bias taught for over 50 years since the creation of the American public school system that has already done damage that I'm pretty sure a critical race theory class would not overnight undo. But it would be the real start in the right direction for us to make sense of what the fuck our country is. So y'all let me know your thoughts. I love it when you slide up on auntie. So please slide in my DMs, because I love it when my nieces and my nephews pull up on me. And make sure you pull up the next time your auntie pull up to the house. And hopefully we will have a guest for you the next time you hear my voice. So I will have somebody here to converse and talk to. But I love y'all. I thank y'all. I appreciate y'all. And y'all go ahead and have an amazing rest of your day. Deuces.